Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I'm going to do a little experiment and a first in this grow room. I'm actually going to flush my mounts using clean water for every single orchid. I've never done that before. I always reuse the runoff water. I do limit it on the grounds that I use a small amount at a time, and when it runs out I top it up with new stuff, so I'm not using a large volume over and over again. But I just want to, I've got the gadgets out. I'm going to monitor the results, so it means I've got to water differently. I've got my water in there and somewhere for the runoff to go, so I'm going to have to pour the water over the mount so that it all falls in there, and then every so often I'm going to check what that water is up to. This isn't going to change obviously, because nothing's going to run back into there, so that's clean water. But I want to see what goes on in there, and if there is a build up in the TDS reading, and if so, how much? Is it tolerable, or should I change my practices? You see what I mean? I need to know before I make rash decisions, because it could potentially use a vast quantity of water, wear the RO unit out and use up a hell of a lot more of my time. So I need to justify heading in that direction, otherwise I'm not doing it. I'll carry on as I always have done without any undue results, if you see what I mean. But what I also want to see is the pH and how fast that drops, because that's more important to me, because that affects which nutrients are absorbed, if any. You know, you drop off the bottom of the scale, you're going to get very little into your plants and they're going to object. So yeah, I just want to see what's going on. I'll update you, but I'm not filming doing it because the kit's on, the fans are on, Hurricane Henry's going, and every now and again the extractor and everything's kicking on. It's too noisy. So we'll do an update as we go along. So I've just realised the lens on my camera is actually fogged up. I'll do an update in a minute. Okay, so that's as far as the experiment is going. That's it, full stop. There's 5 litres of water in there. I'm only watering mounts. I've done 1, 2 tiny ones, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I've watered 13 mounts and used 5 litres of water. Normally, to water all my mounts takes 4 litres. So that's not happening again on any form of regular basis. Nonetheless, I still want to see what's happened, because depending on what's happening, I can change a practice very simply. If my pH is dropping after so many plants, well, I'll just raise it up again and carry on doing what I used to do. Now, I cheated slightly because there was a little bit of feed left in that water. Now, there's a good reason for that, because a pH meter has serious trouble measuring pure RO water because there's nothing to measure. Yeah? It just flashes around through various readings and won't stabilize. Nonetheless, it can still take a reading with a low level. So there was a small amount. The parts per million was 30. Yeah, that was just what was left over from yesterday with some clean water put in. Right, given the low number of plants, I don't expect the pH, the TDS reading to have changed much. It's gone to 37 from 30. Yeah. Most TDS meters aren't accurate enough to even guarantee those 2 readings. So what I've washed out of those plants, bearing in mind yesterday they had a heavy, not yesterday, the day before, they had a heavy feed, yeah, is negligible. That doesn't matter. What about pH? Oh, now this will take, I'm just going to change hands with the camera because I need my right hand to do this, because I've got wiggling to do. Right, now that started at 7.1. So I say, well, there's very little to read in here, so it does have trouble. It stabilises very quickly with a decent amount of feed. I expect this to take a little while to stabilise, because there's next to nothing to look at. Well, it now says 7.2. So in fact it's gone up a fraction. That's providing my original reading was accurate. Like I say, these meters don't work very well when there's nothing to grab hold of. See, a bit more wiggling. It now says 7, well, it keeps flashing between 7.15 and 7.2. I would say there has been no significant change whatsoever. So I'm now going to put that water back in there and start watering normally. There's no way I can afford to use 5 litres of water for a dozen plants. So as far as my mounts are concerned, I'm not going to worry in any shape or form. I'm going to carry on doing what I've always done. But just for today, I'm going to put that water back in there and start watering normally. Yeah, so that will be my source water, that will be my watering, reused, little bit at a time, same as I normally do. And when I've done about half of my mounts, you know, which is going to be about 40 odd mounts, I'll have another look at the runoff water. Yeah, as I said, if that pH has dropped 2 points, if it's dropped from 7.1 to 6.9, I don't care. If it's gone from 7.1 to 5, I do need to care. But as long as it stays within my normal range, I'm not worried. But I'd like to know. So as I said, I'm now going to carry on watering as normal. When I've done about half my mounts, I'll stop and take some more readings. Quite honestly, I don't expect much to change. Now if this was pots, I could get quite a different result. Yeah? But initially I'm worried about my mounts because they are primarily either almost bare rooted or growing in moss. They have no media. It's the moss I'm worried about with the pH. So I'll do another update, but at the moment I'm going to carry on as normal because nothing significant has happened apart from me using 5 litres of water for a dozen plants, and that ain't going to happen again. Right, quick while there's a lull in the gear. R2D2 shut down and so's the extractor fan, but that's not going to last long. Right, what I did, excuse my beer, but it's flipping hot in here today, and I fancied a cool drink. There's R2D2 kicking in. Right, what I did was I put twice as much water in here as I normally do, and I've used most of it. So I've now watered a lot of mounts, including the Oncidium types, which are very heavy on the moss, and in fact weren't even dried out from the last time they were watered. Lots of Tolumnias have been done, so quite a lot of plants have gone through now. Let's see what we've got. I expect the TDS to now have gone up. Correct. Now that's gone up to 90, nearly 100, 98. Yeah, let's say 100 for round figures. So given that it started at 30, that's gone up by 70 parts per million. If I'd used the amount I normally use, it would have only gone up by half that amount, if you see what I mean. So I had twice as much water in there as I would normally use. That's what I do. I put some water in there and use it all up. And then I go and get some fresh, so it doesn't get a chance to build up. And the reason I do that was that when I wasn't doing that and I was starting with a huge volume and reusing it, over a period of watering, the parts per million were going up quite dramatically. So I thought, well, if I use a lot less and then bring some fresh in, it won't build up, it won't change much. And that's been true. I just wanted to prove the point. But this exercise was really about pH. I expected the results from the parts per million. No, I hope I don't splash this in me beer. Ugh. Yeah, it's still around 7.1, 7.2, which is higher than I would normally use to water, but I wanted to prove the point. Yeah, it's hovering around 7.1. So with my mounts, there is no significant drop in pH despite them being in moss. That's what I wanted. So I'm going back to what I normally do, which is mix up large volume in there, the amount I need for what I'm going to water, that remains stable. Put small amounts in here, use it until it's gone, and go and get some more. And for the mounts, that's going to be fine. For the pots, it's probably okay as well, except for the one that caused the problem, which is relatively large pot in pure moss. That was the one that's triggered this test. Certainly for the mounts and probably my normal pots, I'll just carry on as I always have, because I don't think there's anything significantly changing, not have to worry about. You have to bear in mind that if I was feeding at 180 parts per million and it went up by 30-40 parts per million, it's still only 220. It's not like it's gone up to 600 or something stupid. You see what I mean? The change is not worth worrying about. I'd allow that amount of change for putting a large sploop in the mix and can't be bothered to put any more water in. You know, if I was aiming at 180 and I ended up with 200, I wouldn't change it. I'd just put up with it. I don't need to be that accurate. So I'm happy that pH is not changing dramatically with my mounts. That's what I wanted to prove. And the TDS is going up by an expected small amount with reuse. Yeah? But then it gets refreshed. So starting from base again and gradually building up until it's all gone, get some fresh, repeat. So I'm happy with that. Anyway, R2D2's going up my trouser legs here, so I'll stop filming now. Just wanted to make that sort of point. Now that's going to be different for other people depending on media, environments, frequency of watering, all sorts of things. And if you're growing outside and your plants are getting rained on, effectively think yourself lucky. You've got a free flush. Costs you nothing. No work, no effort, no mixing, nothing. You've got a free flush. Well, I can't get that. I have to manually flush. And during the growing season I don't do that very often, quite honestly. Plants need the food, actively growing and all that. But I don't want any build-up in the mounts. But this has proved that there isn't a significant build-up in the mounts. I haven't flushed my mounts since probably 8 weeks ago, when they had some clean water through. Occasionally they get the sprayer, which is clean water, but I don't think that gets enough water on them to really class that as an actual flush, not a proper one. You know, the moss needs to be absolutely soaked and then more water poured on to wash it off and wash it off. That's a proper flush with a mount. Yeah. So they haven't had one for a long time, and that's what's now getting washed off with relatively clean water, and it's negligible. So we can forget all that, but it's nice to know now and again. Nice to know. So now I do, and I can get on with what I'm supposed to be doing, watering, not playing about with filming. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.